for some of these things.
Someone told me the other day, like, what's the biggest, like,
How's that look?
drive?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Like, what's the biggest drive right now? Like, like someone told me they had like a 30 tera drive.
Yeah.
Something monsters like that.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? That's a heat. I mean, I remember back in the day when you get flash drives, like a 512.
Yeah.
That was like the big boy, right?
Yeah.
And then if you get a gig, you're like, what? How'd you get that? And now
it's $500 for a gigabyte, right?
right. But then now, aren't they scarfing up all that? Like, aren't some of this data centers, they're scarfing up all the RAMs or something of that nature that I had read.
Yeah. I mean, with technology, right? None of this works without the hardware, right? You've got the storage.
Yep.
Then you've got, the CPU and the RAM and all of that stuff. It's putting things into memory and the compute side of like the processing side of being able to take that data that's stored and turn it into something cool, right?
Right.
And then you've got all the distribution lines.
Okay.
So it's always capped by capacity of hardware.
Sure.
So yeah, if
Sure. Okay.
a data center or if anything's going to come in and say, we need 10 million graphics cards to do this, and there's only 9 million graphics cards, drives prices up. We saw that earlier. We saw that really go up earlier with graphics cards. So it's all supply and demand, and it's at the end of the day, man, like technology is woven into everything.
Everything, like even the lifts I use, right? There was a big, so JLG, they couldn't get their motherboard chips, right?
Yep.
They had yards. They would tell me they had football yards full of equipment, right? That were waiting for the brain to arrive.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that's where technology is truly, it's the fluid of everything nowadays, right? The electronic fluid in memory of everything is based on some sort of form of technology. There's nothing just basic, like this is all basic mechanic. It
Right.
has to live with an electrical co-partner. And if you don't, that electrical co-partner will be mothered by a computer.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it does not matter what it is.
Your refrigerator probably has a computer inside of it. Your TV is basically a computer at this point, right? All the apps and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your phone, this isn't a phone, right?
No,
The computer lets you make
Absolutely.
phone calls.
So the sprayer I use, right, it's a battery powered sprayer, right? And the reason why I chose a battery powered hopper sprayer is the convenience. Because on job sites, you don't have a power source, right? There's
Right.
two things on murals that people really don't ever really like land on. And that's water access and power source, right?
You're as bad as a data center.
Yeah, exactly. Just not as massive, right? Just not big of a footprint, And so I chose battery, right? I chose battery when it comes down to my spray systems. And, the convenience of that is light years, right? That's why there's people ask me like all the time, like, oh my God, that mural just went up in 3 or 4 days. That's 5,000 square foot. How did you do that? Well, I'm convenient, right? I'm talking about like, I don't use, I don't have to waste my time rolling it out. I sprayed 85 to 95% of things. And also I use battery. I don't have to hurdle around ropes and worry about power sources or generators. And then I take the convenience of pocketing my water, right? I'll use jugs of water in a sense. I'll even use a battery powered power washer to prep the wall. And I've got a 300 gallon like bladder that goes in the back of my truck that feeds my power washer. So everything is about like using the technology to make this project the most efficient thing possible, right? And like you were talking about before about AR. AR is like the leading edge of mural making right now, because of the fact that you don't have to be unsafe doing it in the middle of the night by projecting something. You don't have to be so restrictive on your time, because now, you can do something in 2 or 3 hours and project an entire wall, which normally it would take 2 weeks if you want to grid it. It would take 2 nights if you want to project it. Now I can do it in 2 hours with AR.
So back in the day, it would have been, by gridding it, you would put up the lines that would kind of give you the graph paper to help you with where things are going to go. The projection was actually like just projecting through the image light in order to have it project and show up on the building. That was where you would trace your lines, do your line work. And then obviously all the spraying after that. Now, what you're talking about with AR, you're wearing goggles that, as you look at the wall, are showing you those lines.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's literally casting it right on. I don't even call it projecting anymore. I call it casting an image, you know, and, you know, the old systems kind of married each other, between, they would marry each other between utilizing, the old gridding methods, right? That had been around for hundreds of years. And then they adapted a new fashion of that with a little bit of technology. And they called it doodle gridding, but really what you're doing is creating reference points on a wall, capturing the wall through a computer, overlaying your image on that wall, right?
Technology, man.
Fucking, I know. And I was supposed to be silenced, you know, but then you overlay the image on the wall on your computer or tablet.
Okay.
And then what you do is you just connect the dots on where those things hit at. So maybe it's a couple inches shy of this reference point. You carve it down. It gets you close enough that the artist can take it all the way to the finish line at that point. But any of those steps should never make an artist lazy. You know, and I think that that's one thing that technology has a very poison viewpoint to do, right? Is it makes creativity lazy. It makes society lazy. That doesn't mean it has to. We just catapults off it.
It's just a tool. How are we going to use it?
Absolutely. And I mean, I was referred to, you know, I got into an argument about AI in the art world, right? And I go, well, if you utilize it as a tool, it's your best friend, but it doesn't mean it's going to make you lazy unless you make it make you lazy, right? And you don't do the hard work. We had the honor of being on Ohio Magazine recently. And, you know, I'd done all the artwork on that thing. And after we sent them the proof, they wanted to chisel back a couple of the ideas on there. Instead of me spending another 5 to 6 hours redrawing and painting this thing and getting it right, why wouldn't I just let AI do that for me?
Yeah.
And then polish it up afterwards. So, you know, my theory is always, as long as a human touches it last, it's still artwork. But if you allow a computer or a printer to touch it last, now I think you're kind of dancing on the line of being lazy, because there's always a human eye that makes it better. I don't give a shit what it is. I don't care how good a printer is. You know, we've got a top of a line printer in this studio here. No matter what, that can only get you so far. A human's going to look at that and have an opinion about that. AI is never going to have an opinion about something, right?
It can pretend to.
That's fair.
It can pretend to.
I will give you that, but it's still, you know, it's artificial. You know, it's throwing out options, and then the human makes the decision, right? Like it's. I think one of the most beautiful things I've seen was a commercial for ChatGPT about a date, and I was like, man, this marketing is sick. Man, you guys are solid, but it goes through a role play of like what a perfect date could be, right? The human still has to make the decision. Right. And I think that as long as you're comfortable enough with taking suggestions, right, and mature enough that, yes, you are still the authority here. What happens if GTP or GPT comes in with something aggressive? Are they accountable for murder? I mean, I don't think that that's going to be an easy conversation for someone to say, well, ChatGPT told me to kill that person.
Well, we've already seen some issues of kids committing suicide after conversations with ChatGPT.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's sad. That's very tragic. That's very tragic.
You know, so talking to, and can you check the focus on that? Because I don't think I actually checked the focus.
Looks crisp on the screen.
Well, the screen's pretty small though. Just go ahead and double check it. See if you can zoom in on that. And then we'll do the intro because we skipped.
Yeah, no, you're good.
I did a podcast with Alicia Wagner, and then also
Dr. Andrea Mata.
both who are working with kids in different capacities, and both highlighted that suicide is
Number 2.
cause of death for teenagers.
I believe that. I believe that.
And whether or not that child would have committed suicide with or without the conversation with ChatGPT, a conversation with ChatGPT was involved near the time they committed suicide.
One of the lessons that I learned about suicide dealing with a lot of veterans is suicide will only exist in isolation, right? And it takes that level of isolation for an individual to feel a loneliness to get to that point. But if you continue dialogue and continue like being in a room and being present, it's very I think it does change the needle. It does push back a lot. And I would love to have conversations with those two amazing doctors that you discussed earlier with, because I think when it comes down to technology, the very first thing we do is we isolate, right? You
100%.
have a tablet by yourself. We see it at dinner, right? You go out to dinner and someone's out there with their significant other and they're on their phone, right? That's a form of isolation. You're not present, you know? And if you're having a relationship with your screen more than reality, deep down inside, the truth is you're just isolated.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of darkness that lives in that circle. And I think that maybe kids just haven't evolved into a mature setting to understand that kind of conversation. And that's sad. I know. This is the same person.
I'm going to go just
No,
double check, and then we're going to actually start.
I'm going to fucking